Hello world, this is Zan doing the nation overview for middle-aged Arcoscephale. And so this will be my first attempt where I've, completed the game with the nation, and then I'll try to tell you an overview of what I thought I was going to do, or I guess what I thought I was going to do is going to be in the pretender design. So this is more of what actually happened when I tried to do the things with this nation, what problems I ran into, what solutions I had for them, and so on and so forth. And of course, we're going to start just kind of quickly running through the units again, but this time with a hindsight is 2020 view going on. Actually, even before then, just let me outline, because maybe you guys didn't watch the Pretender Design video, and that's perfectly fine. This is your first time popping up here. So Middle-aged Arcoscephale, they are known primarily for the super communion nation, and I kind of strongly disagree with that. I think I barely used communions until the very end of the game. Mystics worked fine without communions for the most part. But regardless, just for the nation, their national features is heavy spear-armed infantry. It's very difficult to get non-piercing damage, which can be relevant if you fight the undead. They also have elephants and chariots. Trample damage is very significant. It does a lot of damage, and it's hard to really do anything about because most of that damage is armor piercing. There are counters, but hey, this it's very good to have recruitable tramplers. That solves a lot of problems. Their path access is pretty. I want to say it's wide, but it's pretty good because all of these paths also are going to have an astral component, or I guess not the nature path, but the other paths will have an astral component. So you have astral, fire, earth, and water. So now you have access to this in a communion. And there's ways to get into other paths, like air. You can get pretty good air through heroes. And you have basic nature through your recruitable mages, Nature 1, which is kind of the same as Indies, but then these nature mages also are healers. And healing is, it's kind of highly sought after by a lot of nations, and you just kind of have it in a recruitable mage. And, due to its rarity, a lot of players kind of look at healing as unnecessary, not powerful in any way, that sort of thing. But when you heal the afflictions of all of your troops, it lets you have a quality army because obviously as your troops gain experience, they become significantly better. But usually experienced troops tend to come with afflictions that kind of balances it out. So yeah, your guy's going to have +2 attack and defense, which is normally really good. That's what you get from blesses usually. But now he has +2 in attack and defense, but he also took a weakness in one fight, and now he has -4 strength. So he's going to hit you a lot, but he's not going to do any damage. So healers kind of circumvent that. And if you watch my series, once I start really getting to the fightings, you're going to see at the bottom of my screen almost every turn, oh, healed 16 afflictions, healed 20 afflictions. It's insane. Outside of that, their dominion by itself is going to give you accurate military reports. So there's no guessing whether there's 20 slingers or 100 slingers and elephants. No, it's going to tell you there's exactly 47 slingers, 3 elephants, and 2 heavy infantry, whatever. It's going to tell you exactly. It's also going to tell you the gold amount. So if you have low max dominion in the beginning of the game and you have an awake god, your dominion will spread wider, faster, and even one candle is going to give you the full ability to scry. So it's going to help you identify where you want to go during expansion, what provinces you want to grab. This can be very useful if you have a flying expander that can kind of just jump between all of these high value provinces. What else? Labs are 250, and everywhere a lab is just 250, not 500. So that's kind of fantastic. And then standard forts for the era are castles. Fort building is a whole other mathematical equation that a lot of players delve into. For me, in almost every series, I end up just building forts. The first fort that will give you, or fortresses, so then I end up building fortresses. It's the first fort that gives you that CP bonus, because generally you want more mages. Certain borders, situations, you may actually want to spend the gold to get that siege strength or that siege defense, the fortification value. It can come in handy if you are a slow-moving nation. It gives you time to get in position. It gives you time to hit key research. I'm usually very opposed any sort of plan that involves losing. And to me, having your forts under siege is quote unquote a plan for losing. I am planning that I'm going to lose the field battle and they're going to start sieging my forts. And I need extra time to figure things out. I don't usually like that plan, but on certain nations, that can be valuable. I think Arcoscephale is one of those certain nations because they are very slow moving and they have very, very, very fast research. So the difference of 1 to 2 to 3 turns of research can be significant for this nation. So you'll see through my game, I will actually build castles in some cases, although I've already got the fortress, but I want that extra fortification value. Cool, so that's the nation. Now, finally, units. Basic units first, we're going to have basic slingers. For the most part, they are trash. The gameplay I had involved a significant buff to ranged units, and I found slingers to be critically useful but underused, just because I didn't foresee how powerful the buff in that one mod, the Dire Telltale's Balance mod, was. I didn't see how powerful that buff was going to be. Without that, I would be hard pressed to find reasons to build these units. But the time during my gameplay that I really, really wanted slingers was I was fighting Ermor. I considered fighting Asphodel. Anyone that has low protection in the majority of their units, and when I say low protection, I'll go for and I'll say maybe 10 protection, body or helmet. I would deploy slingers, especially because sling hits to the head, because they are blunt damage, do I think 50% more is the number? It's not going to tell me here. Yeah, I think it's 50% more when a blunt hits the head. So if they're at around 10 armor, I would deploy slingers at them. And more so if they are non-sacred or they are sacred without fire resistance, because you can easily cast flaming arrows as this nation. And now these really, really cheap slingers are really good. And you can mass the heck out of these. They cost almost nothing without the mod. With the mod, the recruitment points was like 12 or 14 or something. It was insane. But without the mod, they're dirt cheap, so they can function as pretty good siege chaff, either into the defense or the strength due to the low gold cost, low resource, and low recruitment points. Big problem again to that low damage is they have very low morale. And even that's not too bad. You can get some pretty hefty morale bonuses out of Arcoscephale. So that's the Slinger. The Cardices. Real quick, we're like 8 minutes into this video. I haven't mentioned it. I have the vanilla Sprite expansion mod going on here. I personally really, really enjoy this mod. I think the models are extremely well done by a gentleman or gentlewoman, gentleman on Discord, Sturm, and he's for free just making this mod, and he's going over most of the nations and just making these beautiful models for them. So I put that on whenever I can because I enjoy it. I know there's some people out there that don't like this mod, but it's my video. So I'm going to choose to have the mod on during the video. And should I host any games, I probably will be including this mod because I think they're really neat models. So anytime I can plug them in, I'm going to. So anyways, back to it. Cardices. Cardices, for the most part, suck. The big benefit you want from your hoplites as Arcoscephale is a big tanky unit that's just never going to die. And Cardices does not fill that role because they have 8 body protection. They only have leather hauberks. However, and that was my first thought on these guys. However, as the game progresses, and in my gameplay you'll see this, I end up mass producing Cardices at a certain point. They aren't my A team. They aren't the unit that I want in my vanguard. However, when push comes to shove, and I'm not necessarily winning every battle, And I really just need bodies. And this is a very important and. My research is getting places. I start mass producing Cartises, and that's when you need them because they are bodies on the field that are going to pack into a square. They're going to take buffs, and they're not all bad. And they have better defense skill than your hoplites, due to not wearing prohibitively heavy armor. They have better defense skill. They have the same attack damage almost always, or maybe it's off by one. The mod skewed the stats a little bit, not enough that what I'm saying changes. They have roughly the same damage output. They have better defense skill. They are much cheaper resource and recruitment point cost, and maybe a little bit in gold cost. The two hyper, mega, super important parts on Cartises in the late game, they have the same map move as your Mystics. Hoplites, heavily armored hoplites have about 10. So these guys at 14 can move with your Mystics, and moving 2 provinces instead of 1 in a turn-based game is huge. That cannot be understated how huge that is. Their encumbrance is lower, and their equipment is all bronze or leather. It doesn't rust. Maybe the shield. Maybe the shield might start complaining or something. But for the most part, this lets you cast things like Iron Bane or Acid Storm or any acid spell. You have the paths. But you don't have to worry about your equipment rusting with Cartises. Whereas if you had an Iron Nation, you do. So they're just little tiny tidbits that make it ever so slightly attractive. However, I'm going to go to what I first said. This shouldn't be your A team. This is what you do when you need bodies on the field, and your A team probably died, and replacing them is difficult. Because most of your A team is going to be comprised of Hoplites, Hypospists, and Hearthmanions. And we'll get to those in a second. To finish off our lightly armored units, you have Peltists. Peltists have the same offensive stats. I mean, really, they have the same stats as Cartises, but significantly worse armor and shields, and they do have a Javelin. It's been a minute, but I'm almost certain, and if I had to play again, I would do it again. I'm almost certain I expanded using mass Peltists, because they do have similar stats. 13 defense skill is pretty good when you're fighting indies that don't have really good attack. You can mass the heck out of these, and they have Javelins. Javelins are really good during expansion, especially these guys. This is the default stats, but at range 10, 8 precision is not bad. Maybe that first throw is going to be at that penalty, but the second throw is going to be at point blank range or very close to it. So that second volley is going to do real damage. And again, everything's bronze. There's no iron here. Okay, so now let's go on to our heavy armor. Our A team, per se, maybe even our B team, as Arco, would be comprised of these hoplites. I say this because for the most of your early wars, you're not going to have the greatest spells to be able to buff the armor on your units. You might not want to in the case of Wooden Warriors, giving you fire weakness. So the armor that the unit comes with is going to be a key point on them. However, here's some problems. They're 30%. I know 13 to 10 doesn't sound like a lot, but it's 30% more expensive than the Cartises, and significantly more resource and recruitment point intensive. Their strength and attack skill are 1 more than the Cartesi, and they have a longer spear. So they're going to do 1 more damage, and they're going to repel other spearmen. This is huge. However, they move at the speed of smell with a combat speed of 7. Their map move is 12, and again, the difference between 12 and 14 very often is the difference between moving 1 province a turn or moving 2 provinces a turn. Their encumbrance is 8, so it's twice as much. And again, now they do have iron armor, so their armor can rust, it can break or whatever. Like I said though, early game, when you have time to be massing these guys, because you won't get many per turn due to that resource cost. When you have time to be massing these guys, these are the ones you want. When you can, be in an inexorable force, marching on the enemy, this is what you want. You probably also might be interested in Hypospists. They are 60% more expensive than Cardaces. However, they do have the high defense skill. They have better stats. They're like a mix of both. They have the defense skill of the Cardaces with the strength and attack skill of the Hoplites. However, they cost a lot more gold, a lot more recruitment points, and a little less resources because they have plate cuirasses instead of hauberks. So again, it's a middle ground. They have better armor, but not as good as the Hoplites, but not as bad as the Cardace. However, it's all iron, and they lost the pike, and they're using a basic spear now. And an encumbered 6. So this is just kind of a expensive, elite middle ground to the Cardace. So it's got 13 morale to 11 on the Hoplite and 10 on the Cardace. So it is essentially an elite unit here. And then your sacred is the Heart Companion, which is just a sacred version of your base Hoplite. That's all it is. It's going to have ever so slightly more magic resistance. Cost, again, twice as much because it's sacred. But more hit points, good stats. Not as good as the Hypospists, but he keeps the plate hauberk. So very good stats. This is your 18. Whenever you can, you want to recruit these. Obviously, you're limited by your Dominion candles, which if you were listening to me earlier, I mentioned you should probably take very few of, because the difference between this guy and the default hoplite isn't that high. Now, you can, of course, you can take a big bless for it, and you can do a repel bless, you can do some tanky bless. They take buffs very well. Heck, they have something going for them that the other ones do, is they have a better formation fighter, because all of your units, other than the Peltists and the Slingers, are formation fighters. But these guys are better. You fit 5 of these to a square compared to 4 of your other hoplite variations. Now, that can be better or worse depending on what kind of player you are. To me, 5 to a square is worse. That means I am paying 100 gold to fill 1 square in combat, because 5 of these to 1 square. Or out of my capital, if I recruit 5 per turn, which is, the average when you're recruiting sacreds, I'm recruiting 1 square on the field per turn. And that's dangerous, because I'm going to get flanked. I'm going to get flanked, people are going to hit my mages. I'm going to have this one unkillable square, and then my mages are going to get killed, because things are just going to go around them. It gets worse if someone starts casting like Gifts of Heaven or Thunderstrike or Smokeless Flame, Bane Fire, whatever spells that delete an entire square will now kill 5 of these per square. On the flip side, if you cast things like Iron Warriors or Earth Might, Moss Body, now you're hitting 5 of them per square. That's great. That's great too. That's the trade-off that is up to you, the player, to decide. Do you see that as a strength or a flaw? I personally don't like it. So during my game, I took the larger bless, because with the larger bless, it fits 3 to a square. It makes them size 3. However, they're still going to fit 3 to a square. At 3 to a square, I mean, it's still better because they're size 3s, and then they're going to have more strength, they're going to have more hit points, and importantly, I cannot stress this enough, their map move will go to 14. So these guys can move at the same speed as the Cardaces and the Hypospists and the Hypospists. This is super important as the game progresses, and you can't go moving 1 province at a time. That's bad. Everyone's going to run circles around you. So moving these guys up, to me, I do not like 5 to a square. I like spreading them out. I'm literally changing it from 60 gold per square on the field, or from 100 gold per square on the field to 60 gold per square on the field. It's much more coverage. And they're still taking buffs well because they're still size 3 units and they're 3 to a square. That's still really good. And now that there's map move 14, they can keep up with my mages. This is excellent. So this is going to be the mainstay of your army. Now your specialist troops are going to be things like your chariots. Trample damage is huge. And obviously it's based on your size, so chariots won't have the most trample damage. And especially these that they don't have a lot of armor. So it's 40 gold for 10 hit points, and they have almost no armor. So to me, you need chariots in mass. You need a lot of chariots. Or you need a lot of when you use tramplers, you can't just send a handful. You want to send a lot so they can cover each other's backs. Because if you have a few, what happens is you trample through the first line, get into the second line, and now they've gotten attacked by the first line of units. They've gotten attacked by the second line of units, and then they're going to get attacked by the third line, reaching over, or as they move in there. So if you have a very few, they're going to tend to die really fast, especially something like this. Even with 15 defense skill, which is not horrible, but that low armor, high gold cost, low hit points. There's no second shape here. So these guys, I would avoid these if you can. Maybe during expansion they'll be good. I didn't test with it just because, yeah, I don't think so. There's also a minor bug. To me, it's a minor bug. I reported it to Illwinter. They can do with it as they wish, which is the spear. Is length 3. I believe it should be length 4 because this is a size 4 unit. And being size 4 gives all of your weapons A+1. So if you notice, the short sword is length 2, where it should be length 1. But the spear, I think, should be length 4. And their attack skill is miserable, regardless. So they're not going to repel anything, but it's still something. I think the spear should be length 4. On the off chance they do repel something. But yeah, chariots, I would avoid them. That's just me. I didn't use them in the early game. I got close to using them as the game progressed. I found the situation where I needed something that could trample, and I had the magic to back it up. I can cast Army of Gold and Mass Flight and whatever, and just throw flying armor or iron-skinned chariots at people, and that would be devastating. Because I assume, you'd assume that they also have some sort of protection spell as well, but your trample is armor-piercing damage, and it disrupts their formation. It's pretty good. It's just until you get spells to keep these guys alive, I don't know if these protection values are going to be enough for what they're trampling through. Like 12 is no, it's not that good. And the worst part on it is because some of their protection depends on this natural 5, even casting like the early protection spells like Wooden Warriors isn't as good because it's not going to give you as big a benefit as if they had 12 body protection from their armor and then added Wooden Warriors. Like if these guys had played Hauberks, hell, plate Cuirass, not like they're going to be moving around. They have plate Cuirass with 18 protection, we'd be having a very different conversation right now on how good these guys are being. But since they have a ringmail, yeah, that doesn't quite cut it. Leading to the elephants. Now, I can't remember who it was, if it was Lucid or Sakane that had an entire, or maybe General Confusion maybe. Somebody out there had a very detailed guide on elephant expansion. I've watched it. I have played a few games where I've done elephant expansions. It's pretty darn good. I'm not going to lie. It's very good bang for your buck. And if you can expand with national troops, definitely try out elephant expansion. It's fantastic. Using it against players, there's an early window where that might work, and it'll be terrifying, and it will definitely run over a lot of what they have because these are size 6, 64 hit points, 11 protection. It's all natural armor, so you can't buff it anyways. As the game progresses, though, you run into the issue of these guys have very low morale, 9. When they start fleeing, they will trample whoever's on their way out, which is usually your units, your mages, and you don't want that. And their magic resistance is 6. So the solution to them fleeing is obviously you can berserk them, and you have nature mages, you can do that. So now they won't flee. However, the magic resistance of 6 means people can charm animal, people can false fetters, people can do whatever they want that targets magic resistance, and it's going to get these guys. And they're expensive, at 100 gold each. You don't want these getting charmed. You don't want them getting immobilized, because false fetters will just keep them there forever. So these are really good for expansion, and they're really good for maybe an early war. I would be very, very careful about using them as the game progresses. Because even with anti-magic, they're going to be a magic resistance 10. 10 tends to still lose. Most magic resistance rolls are 12, I believe, 11 or 12. The big AOE ones, or the big battlefield ones, tend to be 8. So it's dangerous to use these as the game progresses. Take with that information what you will. I think I recruited a handful because I was going up against someone that I didn't expect had a lot of counters to them. And so I used them. They did their job. I was ecstatic that they died. I recruit them, and the first thing I wanted to do after I recruit them is get them killed. because I know that they will take a lot of the enemy with me, or with them. They will take a lot of the enemy with them, but then I don't have to pay their extremely high upkeep. So keep that in mind. It's not a unit that you're going to build and you're going to keep in your forts. You're going to build this and you're immediately going to send it out to trample some things and not get paid. Very important. Where are we at? 25 minutes. Fair. This is a complex nation. We haven't even started talking about them. So their commander lineup is a basic scout, whoopee, a mounted commander, which you can get these as indie commanders, and actually they're one of my favorite ones because they're usually it's 50 gold for 60 leadership, as opposed to the sword and shield commander like on foot, which is 40 gold for 40 leadership. This is 50 for 60, so we're already good here. And second, they have really high mat move. Now the trade-off, their armor sucks and they have no shield, so they might get sniped. But I really like these commanders, and the fact I get them nationally is kind of neat, honestly. You have two, or you have three, I guess, land commanders. You have a Hypospists commander, which is your 70 gold, 80 leadership. And again, decent, well armored, well stats, good stats, formation fighter. You have a hoplite commander, so it's ever so slightly more expensive, 75 for 80. Less stats, but more armor. Importantly, it is still mat move 14. And this guy is 16. However, there's none of your units, other than like the chariots, move at mat move 16. Or maybe the Peltists? No. I never found out why the Slingers moved at mat move 12. This was huge for me. It was really annoying. I really wish that they moved at 14. I have no idea why this super light armored unit moves at 12. Maybe because they're like not trained for the military, so marching is still going to tire them out and mess with them. That could possibly be it, because these are supposed to just be untrained farmers and stuff. So maybe that's it. Maybe that's why it's mat move 12. But the mat move 16 to 14, not as relevant. They're both just equally good leaders. You just recruit what you got there. Now, the Strategos is a little different, though. This guy's 2 recruitment points, so you are sacrificing a mage for one of these. However, and they're really expensive. They're 110 gold. This is an elephant right here in gold cost. However, you're going to get an extra leadership pip, and they're going to go out 120. And then they're old age, but who cares about old age? You have recruitable healers. And they're super heavy armored. The big flaw of these guys, despite their good leadership and good everything else, is mat move 10. So they will actually penalize your mat movement. Later on, you can give him boots, and now he can lead your troops at a reasonable speed, 14. But until then, unless you're okay, or it is a situation where it is okay to go at Agartha speed, one province at a time, I would avoid these. But morale is a lot more useful than a lot of people give it credit. And having a high morale leader can definitely help. They can lead 4 squads. Yeah. And that having high morale leaders like this can actually make the difference between just having a mage that has +0, you know? And there's another guy, you can give him the other plus morale items, and that all goes in to make a big difference, you know? It's just you got to sort out that mat move. Old age doesn't matter. In terms of him dying to disease, you have healers. But the mat move part. So this is, again, is someone that you might use later in the game. Not so much early, unless it's a war that you can afford to go at a snail's pace. Like, say you have a border fort that is adjacent to the enemy border fort. You're moving one province at a time regardless. Go ahead, you know? Okay, now finally, the mages. We have the Hiraya, which is 110 gold, 7 research point, a nature 1 holy 1, and they're going to be healer 1s. They move at mat move 16, which is good. And if you take larger, it'll be mat move 18, which is better. And these are... they're a little too expensive to be a research monkey, but they're still useful in terms that they have healer 1, so 1 healing check per turn for 1 unit. And then they have, you know, the just nature 1 holy 1. They're okay. The best thing that these girls have is they are recruit anywhere. You do not need a fort to recruit them. You just need a temple lab, which for most nations is 900 gold. For you, it is 650 gold. So you can debate on whether you want to make recruit anywhere Hirayas that, although aren't as research efficient as your other mages, you can recruit them out in the fields and then bring them into your forts, or even leave them in the field and have them cast Swarm if somebody attacks. and just have more recruiters. Because if you take Magic 3, you know, it's 10 research for 110 gold. You could do a lot worse. I don't build as many of these. I think I did try to do the recruit out in the field thing, but I completely didn't consider if you crisscross forts, that eats all the resources in a province, and it leaves you with 0 resources. And unfortunately, that bronze dagger, there is a resource cost to the Hiraya. So recruiting in the field, I think it's fine. I think it's fine paying 55 gold per turn, give or take, to get 10 research points, because now you're talking 55 for 5 research points, and this is good. This is the head math justifications that I do. Just be careful not to crisscross your forts and eat all of the resources, such that you can no longer recruit anything in that province, including this Hiraya that you put all this infrastructure for. Their counterpart is the Arcusa. Now these you have to build in a fort. They are Holy 2, which to me is significantly, it's more than double better than a Holy 1. It's significantly better than a Holy 1 to me. And they're healer 3, so instead of healing 1 unit a turn, or having a heal check, you know, healing is not guaranteed, especially depending on the affliction that you're dealing with here. But now you have healer 3, so now these are 3 heal checks per turn, per Arcusa. And again, there's same nature 1 and priest level 2. You have to build these in forts, and pretty much everything else is the same. They're a little bit more expensive, and very, very important, they can actually lead troops. This is huge. They can lead troops at move 16. So and you can use these girls to shuffle your units around as you prepare for war or whatever. You can use them to preach up your dominion if you have very low dominion score. You can use them to fight the undead. If you have, and I highly recommend you do this, you get nature 2 from your god, at least nature 2 from your god, you can give them thistle maces, and they will be nature 2 to cast spells that you may or may not need. Their lore snippet says the Arcusae rarely join armies. I think they are pretty integral in your armies. Especially, maybe not as much as a Nature 1 mage, but as Nature 2s, I think they're really important. You shouldn't ignore them. Both due to their healing, which keeps your unit's stats between combats high. And again, this is relevant to me because I don't plan on losing. I mean, I do in terms of big army versus army combats. When I send out a big army, to me that army is dead. I am preparing now for my second army. But sometimes that first army I sent out doesn't die. And when they don't die and they start winning battle after battle and all the units are getting all this experience, it is good to have Arcusae out there to remove afflictions. And as that army progresses, although it is getting smaller due to losses in combat, the units are becoming more powerful due to their stat boosts, and they are not getting afflictions, which would get them killed otherwise, due to the Arcusae supporting them. So I think they're a very important part of Middle Age Arcocephale's mage core, and they are very powerful army support mages. Now, we are left to the 2 mages that will comprise of 90% of your recruitment. You have the Mystic, so 135 gold, non-sacred, old man, almost always. It says here they're young. Whoops. It says here they're young. Almost always they will be old. Having the move 16 ones is very rare. It can happen. It is very rare. In my experience, I found about, just to give a random percentage out there, about 70% of them were move 14. 20% of them were move 12, super old. And then the other remaining percentage were actually remaining at move 16. And maybe these percentages aren't accurate to what their actual move is, but as they random more paths, their old age increases, and their chance of having low move increases. Which means the mages that I actually want to run around and fight with tended to be the ones that were move 14 or 12. The move 16 ones tended to be guys that failed these 3 checks, and they were just literally an Astral 1 plus 1 other path. And that's useless to me. That's useless to me. Now, everyone always comes in and says, Arcocephale is the communion nation. No, I disagree with this. Yes, every single one of your mages can communion. I mean, not the Arcusae, but whatever. Every single one of your mystics and astrologers can commune. But why? Why? If you come in here and you get someone that is a fire 2, a water 2, an earth 2, an astral 2, do they need to communion to do anything? No. A fire 2 can Phoenix power and do fire 2 things. So earth 2 can earth power and do earth 3 things. The water 2s can cast quickness that you don't really want to cast. Do not cast quickness on your hoplites. Please don't do that. They can cast other things. Astral mages, at worst, if you cover up that random with your thumb, an astral 1 mage can sit there and cast body ethereal, can cast luck. And normally people are up in arms. 135 gold casting body ethereal, that's a waste of money. Yeah, but you're also hitting 4 units a square. Or if you don't take larger on your heart companions, you're hitting 5 units a square. Yeah, they can suck eggs. Astral 1s at base, this mystic can body ethereal, can cast luck, which are always going to be a huge spell that significantly affects the longevity of your units. And your units' jobs, I'm sorry to say, due to the weapons we talked about earlier, your units are not there to kill anything. The mystics over here are going to be killing things with fire, water, earth, and even astral. I didn't commune these guys until the very end of the game, and even then they were smaller, specialized communions, because I needed to cast Army of Gold. I needed to cast Atz's Storm. There were things I needed to do that were just beyond the scope of what an Earth 3, a Fire 3, or whatever can do. And again, Earth 3 because an Earth 2 plus Earth power is now Earth 3. You can give them boots. With boots, they're now Earth 4 after the Earth power. You know, you can put boosters on things, guys. It's a thing that you can do. I didn't commune these mystics until the very end of the game, where there were some big spells that I needed help casting. But for the most part, each mystic acted independently, and I think that led to situations where I had more combat power on the field than was expected of me, because people might see 10 mystics on the field. Let me use 12. People might say, look at my army and say, okay, he has 12 mystics, which means he probably has 8 communion slaves and 4 communion masters, which means I have the firepower of 4 big mages. Imagine their shock when I have the firepower of 12 mages, because I'm not using a communion, I'm just buffing up their natural bats. Yeah, I don't think you need to communion these guys in almost every case. Later on, they'll have specialty spells that you need to cast, and yeah, it's fine to communion them. The best communion slaves are the ones that have 1 in each path. So like an astral 1, fire 1, water 1, earth 1, that is your best communion slave, because he will never be off path to your mystics. Now, if you have like a nature mage plugged in, it is what it is. But at least if it's a mystic only communion, a mage with those 4 paths, they'll always be on path and they will likely survive the battle. Especially if earth power is cast at least once by the communion masters. Outside of that, their research potential is pretty significant. You'll pay, if you have Magic 3, you'll pay 135 for 15 research per turn. A lot of mages that are recruiting, or a lot of nations that are recruiting cheap, quote unquote, efficient mages are recruiting a 7 research mage that has Magic 3 to go up to 10. So they're going to pay like 70 gold for 10 research per turn. Cool. It's cheaper. They're saving a lot of money. But if they're getting 10 research per turn per mage, you're getting 15. You have 50% more research than the other guy. Yeah, he's going to have more money. He's going to have more money, sure. But you have 50% more research than the other guy. And there's a hero you can get that will bump up the research even more. It has Inspiring Research 1. So now you're at 16 per mage, which is kind of huge. Okay, so that'll be the Mystic. The last mage is the Astrologer. Now this is your cap-only mage. They are Fortune Teller 10, which is rather small for a cap-only mage having that value. Again, they tend to be old. Mat Move 16 Astrologers is rare. Excuse me. They tend to be Mat Move 14, which again, Mat Move 14 is the Mat Move of this nation outside of your hoplites. It's the Mat Move you want to be at. You want to be at Mat Move 14. They're kind of expensive, 195 gold. They're not sacred. And they're old men. So why would you recruit these? Well, they have low morale, very low morale. They all come in Astral 3, which means by default, every single one of these guys can Magic Phase. Astral 3 plus 1 Astral Booster can now Mind Hunt, and you are uniquely suited to Mind Hunt because you have recruitable healers. So you start Mind Hunting people, and your mage gets feeble-minded. In 2 to 3 turns, he will be healed and ready to keep Mind Hunting things. So you can be very, very reckless with your Mind Hunts and take a lot of opportunities that other nations might be a little bit more skittish on taking. I already mentioned they can magic phase. They research at the same rate as mystics. However, they come. You get 2 mystics per astrologer. So even in the early game, you might just be recruiting mystics out of your capital and then start getting these guys. At least for me, I didn't start getting these guys until like the teens because I needed them to do things. These guys, I mean, look at that. They're Astral 3. You're going to think Communion. They don't need to Communion. You have one of them cast Light of the Northern Star. They're all Astral 4, and they can all shoot out Soul Slays if you so wish. You don't need to Communion for these guys. They can do things on their own. And now they have the same paths as the Mystic. The Fire random, so Astral 3 Fire 1 can do a spell called Astral Fires. You don't see it often. It's not an absurdly powerful spell, but it can be useful in that it's an armor negating spell. It's magic resistance. It's a magic resistance check, but it has a fairly decent AoE, a good range, and it's armor negating damage. Who doesn't like that? That is something they can do. The water randoms, to me, the water randoms are probably the weakest ones, and those are the ones I tend to relegate more to casting just pure astral spells. But it is a random you can do, and I'm sure they can do things. But to me, I just use them for astral magic, pretty much. The earth randoms are by far, these are my favorites, the earth randoms, because you have a national spell called Sow Dragon Teeth. Is that enchantment 6? Is it an earth 2 spell? And for 1 nature gem, you can summon 10 Spartoi, which are these. They look undead, but they are not undead. Hoplites in essentially Macone gear. They have golden spears, golden armor, plate armor. They obviously, since they're near undead, they're not going to fatigue out. They have magical weapons. They have amazing stats. Hit really hard. All for 1 gem. And you can have an Astral 3, Earth 1, teleport in the magic phase to a province, cast Iron Skin, because you don't want to get shot by an arrow, cast Star's Power, and then send out, and then cast some Spartoi. And all of a sudden you have a magic phase dude that is able to send out 20 to 30 Spartoi and kick PD's ass, sometimes fight air elementals, depending on where the elemental lands. And you can generally raid with these guys. You can throw them at another player's capital, and if they're not expecting it, 20 Spartoi, 10 to 20 Spartoi will beat capital PD of every nation, I would think. At least at 25, you know? And that's something you don't expect from Arcoscephale. They can magic phase very well, but you don't expect them to magic phase this tiny, expensive human. But it's something they can totally do. And if you give them 2 Astral Pearls, after they have magic phased and won the battle with the Spartoi, you can change the script to cast Returning the very next turn and go back to the capital. Heal them any afflictions, give them more gems, and off they go again. And it's difficult to deal with. You can't mind hunt them. You can Seeking Arrow them. But my preferred equipment for them was an armor that they wear, these robes that gave them air shield to absolutely make sure that they don't get hit by an arrow. So to me, those Earth randoms could raid like madmen. And I fell in love with the Sow Dragon Teeth spell and the absolute mobility that an Astral 3 Earth 1 Astrologer could give the nation. I'll show you how Spartoi looks later in the video. But that's by far my favorite random because of that mobility that they give you, that magic phase attack that they give you. And then the Astral random, they can cast bigger Astral spells, like they can cast Will of the Fates by themselves. They don't need a Communion. Now, you probably should if you want to share it, but they can also just do like Power of the Spheres, or have someone else cast Light of the Northern Stars, they cast Power of the Spheres, and now they're like an Astral 6 without any items. Because 3 plus 1 is 4, plus Fire of the Spheres is 5, Light of the Northern Star is 6. That's absolutely insane. They can cast whatever astral spell they want without a communion, just by themselves. Most of the time, though, I kept them back as mine hunters because they can mine hunt without equipment, which is neat. But there were a few cases where I sent an Astral 4 out because I just, hey, your job is cast Will of the Fates. That's all. These are super powerful mages. Most of them are going to be old age again, but again, you have healers, so who cares? Just early in the game, you probably want mystics because mystics are going to kickstart your research. These guys are not researchers. You recruit them, you send them to go fight. That's it. The mystics, you can recruit them, you can keep them in your labs and research, and that's good. Astrologers, you recruit them, they go fight. You don't recruit them and keep them in your lab. You recruit them, they go fight because they are expensive. They cost money. And cool, we're done with the mages. I guess we can look at their site real quick. For Astral Pearls is kind of good for a site, and then you just have this one random nature gem, which is a little weird. At worst, it guarantees that in 30 turns, you can empower a Nature 1 mage into a Nature 2, I guess. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Or you can, or those nature gems are gems that you can put onto your Nature 1 mages for them to cast Nature 2 spells or Swarm. So it's something. But 4 Astral Pearls per turn at your capital, that is really good. That is really, really, really good. Cannot stress that enough. Cool. Let me pause the video real quick, get a glass of water, and then I'll turn around here and I'll do some of the spells. Alrighty, guys. Back with some water. Okay, so national spells. Mainly they're national summons, but yeah, we'll get there. So as part of your summons, you have the summon curries. Just pull that up. Find curries. I don't know. I'm gonna go with curs. 12 death gems. You get 3 of these ravishing young ladies. Young being 358 years old, with phenomenally excellent stats. I usually see most elite units float around 13 attack defense, so 14 is really good. They have acceptable hit points for size 2. Good strength. Very good magic resistance, and they're unbreakable because they are demons. They come with Death 1, Blood 1. Hello, I can spend 12 death gems and break into blood. That is something you want to take note of. That is something I plan to do. Stuff. But this is definitely a way that you can break into blood with Arcoscephale. If you Gift of Reason, Divine Name them, they come as units. They do not start as mages, they come as units. But if you Gift the Reason, they have 100% of being Death 1, Blood 1. Death 1, Blood 1. They have Fear, which is good. Some resistances. They don't need to eat. They are ethereal, and they are invisible. Essentially, they're Jinn. They are essentially Jinn. Except when they get hit, they stay invisible because they're not respectful. They're not gentlemen like the Jinn are. That you hit me, I guess I've been spotted. No. They're gonna stay invisible. Demon, Spirit Sight, they cost them unrest and they flying storms, whatever. And their basic attacks stop the dead, which, not too relevant. A slash for 13 is enough to kill most dead. I guess you're fighting a big super combatant. Even though those will probably have more magic resistance anyways, and there's better ways to do it. But yeah, so that is a cur. This is how you break into blood as middle-aged Arcoscephale, which super unexpected. You have the Lampads, and again, there's another death spell. Procession of the Underworld. 13 death gems, you're going to get 12 Lampads. Even if you don't make these girls commander, Lampads are really good. Their stats are crap for the most part, and they have no protection other than invulnerability, which sucks a lot of the time. But hey, don't worry about it. We're here for something else. As a unit, they're going to have a patrol bonus, which doesn't really matter. They're going to have Stygian Guide. This interacts in some way with Stygian Paths, which I have never used personally. But I assume this increases, I don't know, this chance to not suffer the deadly effects. I know Stygian Paths hurts you as you go through it. Maybe this is army-wide. Maybe this only hits certain amount of units. I'm not 100% certain on it. I've never used the spell. Maybe that's something you guys can drop in the comments below. But what is important about them is these Banefire Torches have an AoE 1 armor-piercing decay effect. So regardless if the initial hit does anything or not, this is like a firebrand that does Bane fire damage. It's a little less. 8 armor piercing isn't as much as like the 12 or 14 of the firebrands, firebrand, frostbrand. But on a unit, AoE 1 armor piercing on a unit is powerful. And that's not something that you just forget about. It's magic damage, AoE 1 magic damage. That is pretty nifty and a tool that you might need one day. If you Divine Reason them, I can't remember if they have random paths or if this is an always path. Astral 1, Death 2, Nature 1, which are some neat cross paths. Astral Nature can get you Moonbutton bracelets. Obviously, I think you need to empower them or give them a Ring of Sorcery, Ring of Wizardry, which, by the way, a lot of how you look at the spellbook changes when you realize an Astral 4 random Astrologer can craft himself a cap, a little Astral hat, a Construction 6, and become Astral 5. A Mystic has a chance of randoming Astral 2, Earth 1. Another Mystic has a chance of randoming, randoming Earth 2. So Earth 2 Mystic builds boots. Astral 2, Earth 1 Mystic equips boots, makes Crystal Coin. He can also make the Astral Cap for brevity. You then put Astral Cap and Crystal Coin on Astrologer, that randomed Astral 4, and you have an Astral 6 Astrologer that can craft a Ring of Sorcery and boost all your sorcery paths by 1. So keep in mind, and this is very late in the game when you can do this, but that is a way to increase your Nature 1 to Nature 2, your Death 1 to Death 2, your Astral 6 to Astral 7. Keep that in mind. The way you look at the paths that you need to do things changes. Like if you want to get into Death 5, usually you get stuck at Death 3. But if you get a Death 3 mage with a Skull Staff and a Ring of Sorcery, it's a Death 5 mage that gets you Liches. How do you get a Death 3 mage? You summon a Mound King. Or a Mound King? A Mound Fiend. That's a Death 3 mage right there. How do you get a Mound Fiend? You get a Death 1 mage, Ring of Sorcery, Skull Staff, Mound Fiend. How do you get a Death 1 mage? You find Bone Tribe somewhere. Go find Bone Tribe. Done. Problem solved. But as an example, obviously, you know, your pretender has different options that you can take to maybe lean more into Death, lean more into Nature, lean more into Astral for whatever reason you need to do that your cat mage wasn't enough. But these are things that, you know, can synergize when you start designing your pretender. So those are the two death spells. You also get the Caledones, which in vanilla, they're really expensive, honestly. But these are essentially, if you've heard the term linebacker communion, this is what I had planned to use these for, because they're an acceptable amount of hit points, 25 base protection, resist everything, and then they're automatic communion slaves. So in the case, I think this was my big contingency for Asphodel. If Asphodel had attacked me, I would summon a bunch of these, stick them at the gate entrance with fire shields, and watch Asphodel's entire army die trying to kill a handful of Caledones that are just going to sit there with fire shield and whatever other astral shield, enlarge, personal region, whatever the heck other spell I can throw on the Caledon, which may or may not even work. Like region probably wouldn't do anything, but heck, give them fire shield, give them give them luck, which I don't think does anything either. Give them everything you want. This is your linebacker. They're just really expensive. They can't move. You can't gateway them somewhere else, which sucks. If you could gateway them, they'd be significantly better. But regardless, this is a linebacker communion as an emergency if you get attacked somewhere you weren't expecting. Somewhere that, I don't know, you just need more beef in front of your mages. Speaking of gateway, and I did forget to mention this earlier, astrologers can gateway your troops around. So as the late game progresses and you have gems to spare, you can equip them with leadership increasing gear and have them gateway your units everywhere. I think that's an Astral 4 spell, which again, you can just random that or you can give them boosters. So FYI. What other spells do you have? You can summon Calcatoris. Don't summon these. for the most part, I wouldn't summon these. They're really expensive. They're 30 fire gems each one. They're really good. I have used them before on another nation that like recruited these. They're really, really good. 25 protection is good. Resist everything is good. High magic resistance, high hit points, tramples, size 5. Probably make it size 4 or size 6 with spells at that point. Magic weapon, magic breath. They're really good. It's just, are they 30 fire gems good? Like, do you want one of these or do you want 30 fire elementals? Because that is an option for Arcoscephale. You can find the gems. Hierophant? I don't know. They're really, really good. I just don't know if they're 30 fire gems good. That's a lot of fire gems. What else we have? We have Hound of Twilight. These actually are kind of cool. I like these. I'm really good at trying to find a situation or a use case for a unit. And the use case for this one is you need something big that has a fear aura. And the times where that matters is few and far between for me, I guess. They're really good patrollers. Like, hella good patrollers. And they have, the magic attacks and the serpent tails with poison. But yeah, it's kind of like a big sack of hit points with magic, a lot of magic resistance. And maybe you can like buff it, and then it's a big fear thing in your spot of hoplites that they can stack more into the square with due to the formation fighter. I don't know. I like it as a unit. I really do. I just don't know when the use case is. So once more, you guys can add that down to the comments. But for me, I don't know. It's kind of a, is it earth magic? Yeah, 4 earth gems for 20 patrol strength is really good. So maybe that's the use case. If you have Earth Death, which you can get if you find Bone Tribe somewhere. Bone Tribe have Earth Death randoms or Onyx Amazons. I don't know. It's awkward. You need your Earth Gems for Earth Boots, so you can't be spending it like that. You can do Monster Boars, which this one is under my ownership, but when you cast it, it is not under your ownership. It just goes somewhere, it stealths in there, and it causes unrest. Causes unrest the turn it lands, and then forevermore there is going to be unrest in that province. You can do Hamadryads. Hamadryads, how do you cast this spell again? You have to be in a forest. Is it not a nature spell? You're serious? What the heck? There you go. It's an enchantment spell. That's why. Oof, tired. Need coffee. Hamadryad. So you have nature 4 to cast this? Is you Pretender is the only way? And it's going to get you a nature 3 mage that can only, it's an immobile and it's stuck in the forest. And these tend to be kind of good at holding down the fort. Because it has a lot of hit points. You can put on regen. You could do a Ring of Fire Resistance and the Ring of Regen, and then have it cast Regeneration. It's going to regenerate a lot, but its protection is going to be kind of low. But hey, it's a thing that you can do. But 25 or nature gems is expensive, and only in forests makes sense. But you're not breaking into new paths with this. This is just a defender. And do you really want to invest into defenders? Because again, this is a use case where somebody is attacking your fort, which means you've lost on the field or you have a surprise attack incoming. I don't know if 25 gems fixes that. It might. There might be a use case where this is the unit that you go to cast whatever a nature 3 casts with innate spellcaster, high regen and whatnot. It's possible. And that's most of your summons. I guess the other spell to show you is so Dragon Teeth. I like this spell. I'll do show. So Dragon Teeth. And before I flip the turn, I can go real quick. This is a Muse. They random any elemental path, including air. So the air randoms are significantly more useful than the other ones because you don't have air otherwise. They are very flimsy, low hit point, decently statted heroes. They're very good spellcasters. They are blessed. They have awe. They are magic beings. Very stealthy, recuperation, and they are seducers. So it's good to note that if you have a random, like if this was a throne that has sorcerers or wizards or whatever that have maybe death paths or air paths or blood paths that you might want, you get muses, you can like load the muse up with fire gems, give them some equipment. You do not want to lose this. Give them some equipment, give them some fire gems, and send them in to seduce those wizards. Best case, you get a free wizard. Wizards are good. Wizards tend to be good, I should say. It might break you into other paths. It might just give you a really good mage. Who cares? Worst case, they fail the seduction and they get into combat. They get into an assassination battle, which, depending on the wizard, that can be really, really bad if they have a million gems on them to cast a dozen fire elementals. If they are the wizards that don't have that, though, you can be the one summoning the elementals because, again, all of the muses have elemental paths. So they're going to be summoning an elemental of some kind. And that tends to win assassination battles. Tend to. So that's a good way to break into that sneaky with these multi-heroes. You get many of these. They have Spirit Sight. They're really inspirational, but they have very low leadership, which again you can fix with items. Ugh, that -1 here, imagine that. And importantly, they are both inspiring researchers and spread magic. So in the early game, before your dominion is too high and too spread out, this can essentially count as 2 magic scales. You can go magic 2 in your scales instead of magic 3. And if you get a muse, she will bump up the research in the province she is in by 2 points, 1 from inspirational researcher, and another 1 from spreading the magic, from bumping the magic scale from 2 to 3. The other thing they do is they act as temples with Dominion Spreader, which means they are always going to be blessed. Dominion Spreaders always are blessed, like if they were prophets. And then again, she counts as a temple. Kind of neat. I didn't realize that until like halfway through my game. So muses are really good. Really good. And I think, okay, so the only thing then is the So Dragon Teeth. Just real quick, we'll send in the Debug Senseis. Why are they not casting the spell? Okay, timeout. Timeout, everyone. Or I have more in here. Let me make sure. Because they're supposed to have gems automatically. Okay, round 2. Come on. Okay. Can you get over here? Okay, so attack in there. Naba. Bump up the PD. Thank you. So Dragon. Okay, so these are your So Dragon Teeth dudes. Very low hit points, pierce resistant, resist some things, formation fighters, so 4 to a square. A very high attack skill for repels, very high damage, very fantastic equipment. And they even self-synergize in some way with the people summoning them because you need to be Earth 2 to do it. And usually you want to do Earth Power before that, which makes you either Earth 2 if you were an Earth 1 with the gem, or Earth 3 if you're an Earth 2. And with Lucid's casting AI, at least, if you summon some of these and still have fatigue left over, the very next thing, like off script, that your dude will try to do is cast Legions of Steel or Strength of Giants, which, again, due to their dense formation, is going to hit almost all of them every time. And they have really good stats. They have very fantastic stats. So you add Legions of Steel, now they're at 26 and 21. And then as the game progresses and you start adding other spells to them, you give them any of the Army of Gold or whatever, I mean Army of X or Wooden Warriors even, and they're going to scale very well with that. They have low hit points, yeah, but they have no encumbrance, which can be big. They're inanimates, so this is something you can do against like Rigor Mortis, for example. But yeah, they have low hit points, but everything else they have is fantastic, and you get 10 of these per Earth Gem. 1 Earth Gem, 10 of these guys. So it could be an Earth Elemental. But I'm gonna tell you right now, from experience, a square of this is going to kill Earth Elemental. A single, 10 Spartoid will kill 1 Earth Elemental, 1 Fire Elemental, 1 Air Elemental. they will kill the other amount of whatever the elemental is. It will destroy them very fast. Maybe there's a breakpoint where too many tramplers might screw them over because they have low hit points and high protection and the trample AP damage. Maybe. But in my experience, they absolutely shred air elementals. They shred fire elementals. They shred whatever. Maybe earth elementals might be the most resistant. Those are spot away. And they're just gonna go and they can just absolutely tear things up. And for, you know, some gems, you just big army of Spartoi, they're just gonna tear things up. But that's army of whatever. This is without Legions of Steel. These are really, really good units. Really, really good. And yeah, I think super long video, but it is a super complex nation, in my opinion. That covers most of it. There's other heroes you can get. A lot of them are just kind of like fancy unit leaders, though, off the top of my head. What else can you get? Let me check the Mon Inspector real quick. Okay, you can. So there's two that are fancy. There's three that are fancy unit leaders / thugs. There's the multi-hero muse. There is a. Here, maybe I can summon them. Maybe I can summon them for you guys. Cabaride. Sweet. And what's the other one that's important? Hierophant. Is it this one? No, it is not this one. It might as well be this one. It's the one you get is this one, but they're water 1 instead of water 2. I think that's the only difference. They trade 1 water path for 1 holy path. So it's a holy 2, water 1, nature 3, aka Fall Vapors. So not this one. This is the one Theranos gets. And then the other hero you get that's relevant is Rochester, the Hierophant. His job, he has a very, very simple, easy job. He goes out and he site searches. That is what you want this guy to do. That is his specialty. He's going to go out and he's going to site search all of these paths, including Holy 2, because if you've watched any of my videos, I've mentioned all the time, site search your holy paths. They will get you astral pearls and other things that are good. And as Arcoscephale, I can be the first one to tell you, your astral income will be significant, and it will never be enough. It's like you're playing Calum and you need air gems. So this guy, his job, his whole existence is go out and site search, and maybe do some cross path stuff here and there, but he needs to just go out and site search and do nothing else for the rest of the game from the moment you get him onward. And yeah, I think that will be my take on middle-aged Arcoscephale. Thanks for sticking around for the whole video. I do note again, this is after a full playthrough with them, where, you know, I had some juicy back and forths. I thought I was going to do one thing, I ended up doing something else. If I were to play it again, if somebody were to ask me, you know, what things to do, this video is how I would have a lengthy discussion with somebody on how to play Arcoscephale and maybe do good. You know, buff up your troops. You kill things with your mages. Don't try to kill things with spears. It doesn't work. Trample things for a little bit and then stop and then start trampling things again. Don't communion all of your mystics just because they can. Your mystics don't need communions to be fine. A Fire 3 mage is almost as good as a Fire 4 mage in a lot of situations, especially if we're talking that you're going to have 3 Fire 3 mages as opposed to 1 Fire 4, you know? For the most part, it will be more effective to have 3 mages, 3 big mages like that. Again, debatable. Argue with me in the comments. This is how I would play Arcoscephale. This is how I ended up playing them. I thought I did pretty damn well. There's a whole series going on right now. It's still ongoing probably. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time.